You're listening to the Inspired Entrepreneur's Guide podcast, episode 27. I'm your host, Darlene, and here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Inspired Entrepreneur's Guide podcast. Welcome back. So you know about sanity sessions. Well, today we're having something new called Work at Home Mom Sessions. And to help me unveil this is my good friend Jennifer. We'll be chatting about work at home life from the mom perspective, working at home and being a mom. And like Christina, Jennifer's been on my podcast time and again in the past. And so I thought she would be the perfect person to launch the first Work at Home Mom session because, well, she's been working at home for over 10 years. And she's a mom to 6 children. And I'm going to mess this up, Jennifer, so you have to correct me. Ranging from what's the first age?
21.
Okay, from 21 and the youngest?
6.
Okay, I had 5, so I made him a little younger than I thought. So 6 children ranging from 6 to 21 years old. So yay, Jennifer, hi.
Hi, Darlene.
This is fun and exciting. Jennifer and I have known each other, oh my God, for years. We've never met in real life, but we're here. You can't see us, but we're in video. So it's sort of like real life. I don't know. But yeah, so today we're going to talk about a bunch of different topics, specifically working at home, challenges from the work at home mom life. And maintaining professionalism in your business when you have kids around. And that's something I kind of struggle with a little bit sometimes. And I'm going to get Jennifer's perspective on that. Self-confidence we might touch on. And I know one Jennifer wants to talk about is being an introvert and being an extrovert. And then what that means and the challenges from working at home. So let's jump into it. Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Hi, Darlene. I'm doing great. I'm so glad it's Friday.
Yes, me too. We have a lot of things to cover. Some exciting news from my end. The last time that I've chatted with everybody out there in the universe, I was making plans about possible momhood. If you go back to the last sanity session with Christina, you'll hear that I was talking about, eventually being a mom and laying the groundwork for being a mom. Well, guess what, everybody? I'm a mom. Yay. Liam is our little baby boy. He's at home with us now, and he's 8 months old. So that's why you'll hear a lot of mom kind of based topics now appearing on this podcast. So let's jump into it, Jennifer.
Awesome. Let's get going.
Yeah. So talk to me. Tell me about mom life. What's mom life and working from home like for you? What are your challenges and what have you learned over the years?
Well, I think the biggest thing that most people will probably relate to is that it is absolutely exhausting. You're on all the time. When you're not working your business, which is almost sun up to sundown, you're being a mom and a wife, and it's exhausting. It's nonstop. But it's the most rewarding thing in the world. It's the best job I've ever had, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's awesome. And I love you, from our conversations, I love hearing you say that last part. I wouldn't change it for, exchange it for anything. Exhausting. I was looking at my profile pictures on Facebook the other day, and my mom always could tell when I'm not feeling well ever since I was little from my eyes. And I'm looking at my Facebook profiles and I'm looking back like before Liam, and there he is. I was looking back before him, and I look like me. I haven't changed, but I noticed in my most recent one, I look tired. like the eyes look tired. Like it's still the same Darlene, but there's that hint of exhaustion there. So,
and it's not always the kind of tired where you need a nap, right? Not that sleepy tired. It's that worn tired. Like you're just worn and you just need a break sometimes just to recover from that.
Right. So what do you do? What's your break? What do you do to take a break?
I like long vacations on the beach. I'm still waiting for that one.
Oh, that's great.
I do try to just take time off every once in a while. I try really hard. This is probably a challenge people can relate to too, especially moms running a business at home. I try to make it so that at a certain time of day I turn off the job.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't always work. My niche is real estate, and sometimes realtors need me after hours, unfortunately. But I do try to limit that, and I do really, really try hard not to work on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
Also, sometimes that doesn't work, but that's, for me, just being able to turn off the job for a little while really seems to help.
Now, painting and quilting, they're kind of new in your life in terms of, newer. And
Yes.
so, like, how did you find that? Like, what is it hard to make that time to learn that? Because you have to learn it too. It's like and do you get like jealous of people maybe that don't have the ability to just say, yeah, I'm going to go to the beach and paint? Know what I mean?
Absolutely. I saw a thing on Facebook the other day, and it said, do what you have to do until you can afford to do what you want to do. And I feel like when you have kids, especially, my husband and I made the decision to have a large family. In that, we made the choice to put our time aside until their time is through. So when our kids are grown and on their way, then I can stop and say, okay, I'm retired now.
Is it still challenging though?
Absolutely. I have to remind myself that almost daily, because it does get frustrating when I have friends who either don't have kids or only have one or two that are, taking a weekend trip to Disneyland. We're just not in a position to do stuff like that. But again, it's a decision we made. And with that decision also came the decision that we were going to raise them ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if we mentioned this already, but we also homeschool.
Okay.
And so that adds another layer of challenge to working from home and being a stay-at-home mom. But it's the decision we made. We want to give our kids the best education we know how, and homeschooling was the best option for us. So I know our day is coming where Rudy and I can just pick up and go on a trip for the weekend or something like that. But right now is not that time. Right now is our time to work, build a savings, and spend that time raising our kids.
Right. Going back, we're talking about the challenges. I do want to touch on the benefits. So you're there for your child. I mean, Liam just started backward crawling, and if I had to send him to daycare because I was working outside of the home, I wouldn't have been able to witness that. I wouldn't have been able to text and call my husband and say, honey, guess what? So I think that's, always to keep that in mind, is that there's the other side of the challenge is where it's just so rewarding. Like you had said earlier, is that you wouldn't change it for the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that you like to run. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about introvert, extrovert stuff later, but when you're running, do you find that becomes kind of your time to refresh and clear your mind? And is that your hobby that lets you have that me time that you need to get back on track sometimes?
Yeah, it's so funny that you asked that, because the last week when I was running, I did 7 miles at the park, and I was, a lot of time to think when you're running 7 miles. And that's exactly what I was thinking about. I'm like, I should write a blog post about this where, people talk about their religious beliefs or what keeps them grounded. And for me, that's being outside in nature and running. So when we became parents, it was important for both of us to keep that in our lives, because my husband as well, it's what we love to do and what gives us that re-energizes us mentally and physically. And so we made that a point to keep that in our lives. Definitely both keep us grounded, and it's important for us to keep that going. So yeah, like you have quilting and painting. I have actually podcasting and running.
When I'm painting or quilting, if I get an idea or a thought that I need to not forget, I have to stop and write it down, because I'm not one of those people that will remember later. So do you have a method that you do when you're running if something comes in your mind where you can capture that thought, or do you just cross your fingers and hope for the best that you'll remember when you get home?
Yeah, the second one. I just cross my fingers and hope for the best. Like I had a thought for a podcast, a solo podcast episode about self-confidence. And that came to me when I was running, and I kept saying, oh, I have to write this down. I have to write this down. And I never wrote it down. So all week it's been in the back of my mind, like, okay, I really have to sit down and do this. And finally I did that yesterday. So,
oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. It would have been gone for me right out of my head if I don't write it down.
Yeah. That kind of stuff stays in my mind, but daily stuff lately, like now, mom brain, daily stuff, I have to send myself an email to remember.
I think we can probably put that on the list of relatable challenges. Write it down or it's gone. Especially in business, when it comes to not wanting to forget something that your client has asked for.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. In terms of that, and we kind of maybe can talk about, I know I call it mom brain, but trying to just remember everything, because you're remembering, did I feed Liam today? In addition to, my client needs that email to go out. So for me, my trick is to, you've seen my email. I use the Gmail inbox now, and I boomerang a lot of stuff or snooze a lot of stuff and have it just hit my inbox rather than leaving it in my inbox and becoming overwhelmed by all the email. And so I snooze it back to a time when I know I can focus on it. And then it'll also be a reminder for me to pick that up and work on it.
Absolutely. It might be a good time to segue into professionalism with children at home.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell you a short story, and then I want to know maybe a story where something like this has happened to you. So when Liam was, more of an infant and he was feeding constantly, a client wanted to do a phone call. And I was like, okay, we'll schedule a call. And it happened to be right around his feeding time. So I fed him while on the call. And it was fine. We were talking and we had like almost a 45-minute phone call. And she said, oh, this has been wonderful. This was great. Thank you so much. But then I hopped on the phone later with someone else and I was feeding Liam. And they were like, oh, that's so cute. You can hear him eating. And it dawned on me that during my phone call with my client, she clearly must have heard him eating and making his cooing sounds and everything, but she didn't say a word. So I felt somewhat mortified, like, oh my God, I can't believe that. But then on the other hand, I thought, I have some really pretty cool clients that would just be like, just ignore that and keep talking and then tell me it was a great phone call and I helped her out so much. So I started to reschedule my calls during more like nap time rather than feeding time. So I learned that. Anything like that come up with you where you were like, oh my God, or like, that video of the guy on the BBC being interviewed? Anything happen to you like that?
I don't think I've ever had anything like that. I've been very fortunate that most of the time I've been running my own business, I had a home office with the door that I can close and even lock. I also have another advantage that maybe a lot of people don't have, is that we homeschool. So all of my kids are here and the older ones can really corral the younger ones and be quiet while I'm on calls. I don't do a lot of calls. So noise isn't as much of a factor for me now. I think where I probably struggle most is the distractions, the interruptions. A lot of times I'll be on a project, especially if I'm doing web design, every distraction is a huge distraction. And so for a while I had this little, I wonder if I still have it. I had this little construction cone, rubber construction cone, and it said work zone, do not interrupt. And they knew if it was on the corner of my desk that they couldn't talk to me.
Oh, that's funny.
The only exception is when my kids wake up in the morning, because I'm up so much earlier than they are. They know they're allowed to come in and say good morning and give me a hug.
That's nice.
That's pretty much the only exception. Otherwise, they know. I think having a signal or something like that. I think for a while what I did was if I was doing web design, I would have classical music on.
Okay.
And so the kids knew that if classical music was playing, don't bother mommy. But if it was, country or some other genre of music, I wasn't so focused and I could be interrupted for important things or small things even. So I think just having a system in place where where your family and kids know that, in this time I can't be interrupted, and being available those other times has really helped, at least in my house.
Right. What about, do you ever feel guilty? Like, okay, I'm in here and like maybe one of your sons just keeps coming in and you could tell that they want to play, but you know that there's something that you need to get done for a client. How do you handle that?
Oh, it happens all the time. Probably every single day I feel that way. I try to take regular breaks during the day and make sure that when I do finish a big project that's been trying, or try to take those regular breaks and get to him and find a way to spend some time with him before I get on to the next project.
Okay.
And I find that really helps. And you probably do too. Liam's at that age. Hi, Liam. Look at those eyes.
I don't think he can hear you
a
here.
Little smile.
Hi. There were a few things I wanted to cover, but I did want to cover the introvert extrovert because that one, we've been talking about that and I think it's interesting. So what did you want to chat about that?
Like you just said, it's very interesting to me. I have 6 kids, so I have a good mix of introverts and extroverts. And you and I are very on the opposite end of the spectrum in that regard.
Right.
And so I wondered, for me, sometimes I find it challenging to work from home because I don't have those interactions.
Right.
And I have a couple of clients that I talk to pretty regularly, maybe on a daily basis, but it's just really not the same as having that full social interaction.
Right.
So that's a challenge for me working at home. What is that for you?
I mean, even though, it's clear I'm definitely more of an introvert. But sometimes I think anybody, introvert or extrovert, they get lonely sometimes being at home, even if, you have children, that adult interaction isn't there. So for me, on the flip side, the challenge though is for me is, the networking. People say, oh, you should really go out and do local networking. Or sometimes I'll have clients or I work for a company where they'll want me to come into the office, not often, like once every 3 years. And that is so nerve-wracking for me because that means I have to interact with a whole bunch of people. It makes me very nervous. So yeah, it's just hard for me in terms of getting out there. But I think, really, you think that's hilarious. The way I resolve that here, like the loneliness and all, is just talking to people like you and my friends, or calling up my friends and family. But yeah, the challenge for me, and the phone calls, we had just talked about this the other day, where clients sometimes just want to say, oh, hey, Darlene, can you call me real quick because it's easier to talk on the phone than send an email. And for me, my brain's thinking, no, I just want to email. Can we just email? But of course, I call them and speak to them. But that kind of stuff is hard for me because it takes a lot of energy for me to do calls or these podcasting interviews. Like I have to prep myself. Like I need a day in advance to really prep myself up that, this is going to happen and we're going to chat and it's fun. It's not like once we're chatting. And so I need that prep time. So that's why I find it hard when someone wants to just jump on the phone.
Interesting. And for me, it's the complete opposite. When you said, let's do a podcast or interview, I said, okay. And now I'm thinking, this is fun. We should do this every day.
Right? Yeah. No, and me too. Like, I think that, but I'll need like a week to prep for it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. This has been a fantastic mom session. I think a little bit of a sanity session too, but there was one topic I wanted to touch on is self-confidence. So maybe we can do a future session on that, talking about self-confidence and how it wanes, especially from working from home and maybe lack of feedback and things like that.
Absolutely.
So any parting words that you would like to share with everybody for today?
I think the biggest thing for all the work at home moms out there, I just want to encourage everyone to stick with it, because the investment in your children's lives is worth all the challenges and struggles that we endure to do this. So just hang in there, and it's worth it.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us in the first Work at Home Mom session with Jennifer, myself, and Liam. And we'll be back soon with another one. And bye, everybody.
Bye.